In our last video, we built the walls to our isometric maze. I'm actually going to start to fill these individual walls. As you can see, I can select them with a fill. Now, if we go to the original picture, we can, if we want to, actually make these colors. I have this eyedropper add-on. I'm in Google Chrome right now, and I can actually select these colors if I wanted to. You can see in this corner the changing colors. But I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm just gonna take an artistic approach and just do it myself, to be honest. So I'm gonna fill this, and it's a lot simpler. I'll just come out and say it. I don't really feel like doing that. I'm gonna arbitrarily fill these with colors. Notice it's kind of hard to select this wall right now. So with this wall selected, I'm gonna hold the shift key and make a dialog box here. What that should do is deselect the wall I have selected and select the wall I'm trying to find. And we're just gonna make some more. Cool. Make that purple. Sweet. So, if we look back at the original picture, there's no edges, which means there's no strokes. I'm gonna select all, actually by hitting Command A, and just turn off the stroke. There, great. So, just briefly about gradients. Gradients work and depth works if we understand light. And so if we go to the original image, we make an assumption here that our light source is actually somewhere around here. So if we make that assumption, we can kind of think about that as we apply our gradients. So you can see in this image, our gradients kind of go downward like this, and it goes from a high value to a low value. I mean, that's basically what a gradient is, and it represents where the light is hitting it. So we can see the gradient is actually going perpendicular to our edge here, and that's important to note. So I'm going to go back to Illustrator, select this, and I'm going to take this fill tool and bring it down to my gradient. So it goes from red to black right now. I don't actually want it to go to black. I want it to go to somewhere in this intermediate range. So I'm going to select actually in that intermediate range and get rid of black. I'm going to bring that over, and now I'm going to hit the G key and adjust that gradient. Now we said we want the shading to go perpendicular, which means that somewhere around here is how we want our shading to actually work. Again, we always have to think about where our light source is. So our light source is right here, right? It's directly hitting this face of the wall. And the further we go down, the less of this light source we get. Kind of contrary to that, we will select this wall. And we'll do the same method of bringing the fill down into the gradient. I'm going to double click this to change it to black. Then I'm going to select in this intermediate range and get rid of the black. Cool. So I'm going to hit the G key again and adjust the gradient. Now this is kind of different from this wall because it's not directly facing our light source. So thinking about how the light is hitting it and then how we should make our values represent that, I would say that there's going to be less light on this edge because we have a wall that kind of interrupts or blocks the light. So I'm going to extend a gradient like this, again making sure it goes perpendicular. A little too dark, maybe something like this. And that's how we create gradients that represent accurate light values. So I'm going to fast forward and do all these, and hopefully we should have a cool result. This should kind of be your final result. It should appear somewhat similar to this. Now, you don't really have to understand color theory to understand how light works, and because really the principles of gradients and values is really dependent upon where our light source is and how we understand light. So, when it comes to creating more of this maze, as you kind of hinted at in your post that you were going to do, I think it's important to keep these principles in mind when designing more of the maze. Again, you'll want to constrain your angles to 30 degrees to keep it as an isometric maze. But overall, I think this should hopefully allow you to complete what you want to. Hope this helps. And I am out. Screencast complete.